He was found alone in a small Manhattan apartment. Around him were 50 envelopes of heroin, a syringe still in his arm, and a half-finished script lying on the kitchen table. The television was still on. The coffee had gone cold, and just a few feet away, there was a stack of letters written to his children, letters he never got to finish. That was how the world lost Philip Seymour Hoffman, an actor so extraordinary that even silence seemed to listen when he spoke. But behind the brilliance was a man who fought demons so powerful they waited for him even at the height of his triumph. He had everything the industry worships: talent, respect, legacy, an Oscar. And yet, when the camera stopped rolling, he was just a father of 3 trying to stay sober one more day. In the winter of 2014, Philip's story ended, not on a red carpet, but in the quiet darkness he had portrayed so truthfully on screen. But his death was not a sudden tragedy. It was the final act in a story Hollywood never wanted to tell, a story of obsession, exhaustion, and a genius who could never stop feeling. He was not supposed to die like this, not after everything he had overcome. When he won the Academy Award for Capote, he said he owed it all to the people who taught him to be brave. But what no one knew was that bravery had a cost, and by the end, he was paying it alone. So what really happened in those final days? How did one of the most respected actors of his generation, a man who seemed to have conquered every role and every weakness, fall back into the shadow he once escaped? Over the next half hour, we will trace the hidden truth behind Philip Seymour Hoffman's downfall, from his early years in upstate New York to the emotional abyss that followed his greatest success, and finally to the night that ended one of Hollywood's most haunting stories. Because behind every award he held was a man still haunted by the roles he could not let go. This is the story of Philip Seymour Hoffman, the genius who felt too deeply for a world that did not know how to save him. He played men who were broken, lonely, desperate for meaning, and audiences believed him because he was not pretending. Offset, he avoided celebrity life. He lived modestly in New York, rode the subway, bought groceries at small markets. He once said, "Fame is not real, work is real." But inside, something was building. That relentless search for honesty on screen came with a cost. Every time he poured himself into a character, a piece of him stayed behind. Friends from that time said he would finish a shoot and fall silent for days. He was already learning that the more truth he gave to the camera, the less of himself he had left. He was rising fast, but he was not celebrating. Because even then, Philip Seymour Hoffman was not chasing stardom, he was chasing peace. And it was already slipping through his fingers.
Long before the world knew his name, Philip Seymour Hoffman was just a quiet kid from Fairport, New York, born in 1967 to a middle-class family that looked ordinary from the outside. His mother, Marilyn, was a lawyer who raised 4 children alone after the divorce. She was practical, tough, and determined to give her children a stable life. Philip, on the other hand, was introspective, withdrawn, and heavier than most kids his age. He watched people the way some people read books, carefully, silently, trying to understand how they worked. That habit became his first training as an actor. When he was 14, he saw the film, All That Jazz, and it changed his world completely. He later said that was the moment he decided to act, not for fame, but because the movie showed him that truth, even when painful, could be beautiful. Acting, for him, was not escape, it was exposure. He joined a local theater group, and the stage became his refuge. It was the only place where he felt both terrified and alive. But that same sensitivity that made him great on stage also made him fragile. Offstage, he struggled with insecurity and self-doubt. A high school wrestling injury forced him to quit sports, and during the long recovery, he began drinking and experimenting with drugs. What started as curiosity became a habit that followed him into adulthood. It was his first experience with how quickly control could vanish. When he entered Juilliard in the late 1980s, he walked into a world where talent was everywhere and competition was brutal. But Philip did not compete the same way as others. While many students performed to impress, he performed to feel. He pushed himself until his voice cracked, until his body shook. He studied acting like it was survival. One of his teachers once said, Hoffman was the kind of student who made everyone else uncomfortable because he felt too much. That depth became his signature. When he moved to New York after graduation, he found small parts in theater and television. He was not conventionally handsome, not the type casting agents wanted, but the camera saw something magnetic. He could make stillness powerful. He could make a glance feel like confession. His small roles in the early 1990s began to attract attention. Then came Boogie Nights, Magnolia, and The Talented Mr. Ripley. In each of them, Hoffman played characters that felt painfully real, people broken by desire, guilt, loneliness. He played them with such sincerity that audiences forgot they were watching a performance. He built a reputation as an actor's actor, the one everyone respected for his honesty. He refused to move to Los Angeles. He stayed in New York, lived modestly, rode the subway, wore old clothes, avoided publicity. He told interviewers that fame did not interest him. Work did. He said acting was the only place where he could face what he was afraid of. But there was a cost. Every time he poured himself into a role, a part of him stayed behind. Friends noticed that after a project ended, he would disappear for days, unable to speak to anyone. Sometimes he looked exhausted, not physically, but spiritually.
By the early 2000s, Philip Seymour Hoffman had become one of the most respected actors of his generation. Yet behind every flawless performance, there was a man walking closer to the edge. He was known for a kind of intensity that frightened even the people who admired him. Most actors prepared for their roles. Philip disappeared inside them. He called it the price of truth. When he played Truman Capote in the film Capote, he did not just study the writer, he lived him. For months, he read Capote's journals, letters, and interviews. He changed his voice, his posture, his handwriting. On set, he refused to break character even between takes. He kept a small notebook written entirely in Capote's tone of voice. It was found later, filled with sentences that blurred the line between actor and subject. The performance earned him an Academy Award, but also left him drained. His friends said that when filming ended, he collapsed emotionally. It was as if the character had taken something from him that he never got back. During the press tour, he smiled for cameras, but those who knew him saw the fatigue in his eyes. He told one interviewer that success terrified him more than failure. He said success meant more people watching him, and he had never felt comfortable being seen. He had spent his life playing men who hid behind masks, and now he was expected to become a public symbol of excellence. That pressure only deepened his anxiety. After Capote came a wave of major films: Doubt, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, The Master. In each role, he sank deeper into damaged minds: priests, con men, addicts, leaders haunted by guilt. He once said he loved characters who were messy because they felt like real people. But the truth was that he was drawn to them because they mirrored his own chaos. On set, he demanded truth from everyone. He would stop a scene and tell a co-star to stop acting, to just feel it. He did not care about looking good or sounding clever. He cared about the moment being honest, even if it was ugly. That honesty made his performances unforgettable, but it also left him raw. Friends said that he would come home after shooting and sit in silence for hours. Sometimes he cried without knowing why. He once admitted that he often felt like a ghost after finishing a film, unable to find himself again. He said it was like leaving pieces of his soul behind in every role and having less to return to each time. As the praise grew louder, his inner voice grew quieter. The applause that followed each performance felt distant. It did not heal him. It only reminded him how hollow fame could feel. He had learned how to turn pain into art, but he had not learned how to live with it. And as he moved from one masterpiece to another, the boundary between Philip the actor and Philip the man began to disappear, until one day even he could not tell where the performance ended and where the loneliness began. By the early 2000s, Philip Seymour Hoffman had become one of the most respected actors of his generation. Yet behind every flawless performance, there was a man walking closer to the edge. He was known for a kind of intensity that frightened even the people who admired him. Most actors prepared for their roles. Philip disappeared inside them. He called it the price of truth. When he played Truman Capote in the film Capote, he did not just study the writer, he lived him. For months, he read Capote's journals, letters, and interviews. He changed his voice, his posture, his handwriting. On set, he refused to break character even between takes. He kept a small notebook written entirely in Capote's tone of voice. It was found later filled with sentences that blurred the line between actor and subject. The performance earned him an Academy Award, but also left him drained. His friends said that when filming ended, he collapsed emotionally. It was as if the character had taken something from him that he never got back. During the press tour, he smiled for cameras, but those who knew him saw the fatigue in his eyes. He told one interviewer that success terrified him more than failure. He said success meant more people watching him, and he had never felt comfortable being seen. He had spent his life playing men who hid behind masks, and now he was expected to become a public symbol of excellence. That pressure only deepened his anxiety. After Capote came a wave of major films: Doubt, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, The Master. In each role, he sank deeper into damaged minds: priests, con men, addicts, leaders haunted by guilt. He once said he loved characters who were messy because they felt like real people. But the truth was that he was drawn to them because they mirrored his own chaos. On set, he demanded truth from everyone. He would stop a scene and tell a co-star to stop acting, to just feel it. He did not care about looking good or sounding clever. He cared about the moment being honest, even if it was ugly. That honesty made his performances unforgettable, but it also left him raw. Friends said that he would come home after shooting and sit in silence for hours. Sometimes he cried without knowing why. He once admitted that he often felt like a ghost after finishing a film, unable to find himself again. He said it was like leaving pieces of his soul behind in every role and having less to return to each time. As the praise grew louder, his inner voice grew quieter. The applause that followed each performance felt distant. It did not heal him. It only reminded him how hollow fame could feel. He had learned how to turn pain into art, but he had not learned how to live with it. And as he moved from one masterpiece to another, the boundary between Philip the actor and Philip the man began to disappear, until one day even he could not tell where the performance ended and where the loneliness began.
Stream, Imogen, and Vio have moved into the model picker. By the end of 2013, Philip Seymour Hoffman was living two lives. On one side, he was still the respected actor, appearing in major films, rehearsing new stage projects, still admired by the entire industry. On the other, he was sinking quietly into a cycle of relapse and denial. People close to him began to notice subtle changes. He missed calls, canceled plans, skipped rehearsals for the first time in years. His face looked tired, his voice slower. His longtime collaborators sensed something was wrong, but few knew how deep it went. Hoffman had always been private about his pain. He was filming scenes for The Hunger Games: Mockingjay, where he played the strategist, Plutarch Heavensbee. On set, he was professional and composed, but crew members said he sometimes appeared distracted, as if his mind was somewhere else. When asked if he was all right, he would smile politely and say, "Just tired." Behind that mask, his addiction was tightening its grip. He had started using heroin again, not daily at first, but often enough to need it to function. He was ashamed to let anyone see how far he had slipped back into dependency. Those who tried to reach him were met with silence or vague reassurances. In one letter found later after his death, he wrote to a friend that he felt hollow, that the roles had eaten him alive. He said he could not find joy in acting anymore, that it felt like a burden instead of salvation. The letter was never sent. He began avoiding social gatherings and industry events. He stopped attending recovery meetings. He stopped answering his therapist. His world was getting smaller every week. He kept working, hoping that the next role would fill the void, but it never did. Around the holidays in late 2013, he looked visibly thinner. He told friends he was fine, but he was not. His partner, Mimi, noticed the distance growing. She asked him to move out temporarily, hoping it would force him to confront his problem. He agreed and rented a small apartment in the West Village, close enough to see his kids, but far enough to hide his relapse. That apartment would become his last address. In those weeks, he was both working and unraveling. He continued to meet with directors and read new scripts, trying to stay connected to the work that once gave him purpose. But without sobriety, the work no longer healed him. It only deepened his sense of failure. His friends tried to help, but addiction isolates with precision. It convinces you that you are protecting others by staying away, that you are in control even when you are losing it. Hoffman was a man used to discipline. He believed he could manage the spiral by himself. But heroin is not something you manage. It waits for silence and grows in it. By January 2014, his behavior had become erratic. He was seen at downtown bars alone. He spoke little and left quickly. He sent a few texts to old friends, apologizing without explaining why. Hollywood saw an icon, a man at the peak of his craft. But when Philip looked in the mirror, he saw only a failure, a father who had broken the promise he made to himself 12 years earlier. He was losing the fight quietly, without spectacle, without headlines. Only those who truly knew him could feel what was coming, the slow fade of a man who had given the world every emotion except the one he needed most: forgiveness for himself.
Stream, Image, and Vio have into the model picker. The final days of Philip Seymour Hoffman were quiet, almost invisible to those around him. It was the winter of 2014. New York was frozen in gray light, and he was trying to hold himself together in that small apartment on Bethune Street. The apartment was simple, almost bare. A mattress on the floor, stacks of scripts, piles of books, a few family photos taped to the wall. He was working on a play he hoped to direct later that year. His notebooks were filled with sketches, ideas, fragments of dialogue mixed with personal confessions, lines that read more like prayers than notes. One of them said, "I still believe there is a way back. I just don't know where it starts." He was still in contact with his children, seeing them regularly. He brought them to the park near his home and promised Mimi that he was getting help. He was trying to go back to meetings, trying to clean up, but the pull of the drug was stronger than his promises. During his final week, he was seen several times in the neighborhood, always alone, buying coffee, walking with his hood up, carrying a paper bag. On February 1st, he went to dinner with friends. They said he looked tired but calm. They talked about future projects. He laughed a little, left early, and said he had to be up early the next morning for rehearsal. That was the last time most of them saw him alive. On the morning of February 2nd, Philip missed a meeting. When a close friend could not reach him, they went to his apartment. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything was still. The television was on low volume, the coffee mug half full. On the kitchen table, there was a notebook open to a blank page. Philip Seymour Hoffman was found in the bathroom, on the floor, a syringe still in his arm. Police later discovered about 50 envelopes of heroin labeled Ace of Hearts and Ace of Spades scattered nearby. They also found 2 empty bags in the trash and several unused ones hidden inside a box of personal papers. But what made the scene more haunting were the small signs of life around it. Scripts with handwritten notes, bills unpaid, letters to his children, one of them beginning with the words, "I love you so much that it hurts to say goodbye," and ending mid-sentence. The autopsy would later reveal a mix of heroin, cocaine, and prescription medication. The combination proved fatal. He was 46 years old. In the days that followed, the world reacted with shock, but those who knew him said they were not surprised. They had seen the pain building. They had seen the quiet warnings that no one knew how to answer. The night before his death, Philip had spoken on the phone with a friend about upcoming work. He had sounded hopeful about directing again. He told them he was okay. He always said he was okay. What he did not say was that he was using again, that the silence of that apartment had become unbearable, that he was drowning in guilt and fatigue. When his body was discovered, the police described the scene as tragic but peaceful. There was no note, no explanation, only the stillness of a man who had given everything to his art until there was nothing left to give. Later that day, his close friend and playwright, David Katz, said, "He was the kindest man I knew, and the loneliest." And in that single sentence, the world understood something they had missed all along, that Philip Seymour Hoffman had never truly escaped the roles he played. He carried their sorrow until it became his own. In the end, it was not fame that killed him. It was silence after applause, the space where no one could see that the man everyone admired was still fighting for his life.
The news of Philip Seymour Hoffman's death hit Hollywood like a wave of disbelief. It spread through the morning of February 2nd across television networks and social media. The headlines were short and brutal. Oscar-winning actor found dead in New York apartment, age 46. Actors, directors, and fans from every corner of the world reacted with heartbreak. Meryl Streep called him a great and tender spirit, a perfectionist of empathy who made us see the human soul. Julianne Moore said she lost not only a colleague, but a brother on stage. Benedict Cumberbatch said he was the kind of actor who made you feel small in the best possible way. Broadway went silent for 1 minute. The lights dimmed across the marquees in his honor. Theater workers, many of whom had known him for decades, stood together in tears. He had been one of them before he was a star. His longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell, later wrote an essay in Vogue that gave the public its first real glimpse of what his final years had been like. She wrote, "Addiction is not a Hollywood tragedy, it is a human one. It does not end when the applause does." Her words stripped away the myths around his death, showing instead a portrait of a man who fought until he could not anymore. There were stories few had heard before. Hoffman had been donating anonymously for years to local addiction recovery shelters across New York. He never wanted credit for it. The managers of those programs only learned it was him after his death. They said he had often sent money with a note that read, "For the ones still trying." That revelation changed how people saw him. He was not just an actor who fell. He was a man who spent years helping others climb out of the same darkness that eventually consumed him. In film schools and acting workshops, his name became synonymous with truth. Teachers told their students that to study Hoffman was to study honesty, because he never played a line he did not believe, and he never took a role he did not understand. Younger actors like Joaquin Phoenix and Adam Driver cited him as an influence. They said Hoffman taught them that the most important part of acting was to feel everything, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. His legacy was not an empire of wealth or power. He left no mansion, no luxury brand, no social circle of privilege. What he left behind was something much rarer, a body of work that still breathes decades later, and a reminder that empathy has a cost. In the weeks after his funeral, fans gathered outside his apartment, leaving flowers and notes. One of them wrote on a piece of paper, "You made us feel less alone." And perhaps that was the truest summary of his life. He gave his audience comfort by showing them pain. Philip Seymour Hoffman had always said that art was about connection, about revealing the truth inside chaos. In that way, his life was complete, even in its tragedy.
When people remember Philip Seymour Hoffman, they often begin with how he died, but that is not the real story. The truth lies in how deeply he lived. He was never made for fame. He was made for feeling, for understanding the corners of the human soul that most people turn away from. Every role he played was an act of translation, turning pain into language, turning silence into truth. For 2 hours on screen, he made the world feel what he carried inside every day. He once said that acting was like holding up a mirror to yourself until you could no longer look away. That was both his gift and his curse. He looked too closely for too long, and what he saw began to destroy him. Hollywood celebrates success, but it does not know what to do with truth. Hoffman's life was proof that genius and suffering are not poetic ideas. They are real and they cut deep. When the world claps for the artist but never listens to the man, the silence that follows can become unbearable. His death was not a scandal or a failure. It was a warning about the emptiness behind applause, about the loneliness that hides beneath the surface of greatness. Because when the lights fade and the crowd goes home, some actors are left with nothing but the echo of their own performance, wondering who they are when no one is watching. Philip never found that answer, but his work did. It still speaks through every trembling silence, every whispered line, every gaze that lingers longer than comfort allows. He was the kind of artist who burned so brightly that the light itself became painful to bear. Yet that light never truly went out. His performances still reach into the hearts of people who never met him and somehow make them feel less alone. He was not supposed to die like this, not after everything he had overcome. But maybe he lived exactly as he was meant to, completely honestly, with no protection from what it means to be human. His life was messy, raw, unfinished, but it was real. In the end, Philip Seymour Hoffman's legacy is not the way he left the world, but the way he changed it. He showed that truth matters more than beauty, that empathy is stronger than fame, and that pain, when faced without fear, can become art. For him, the curtain never really closed. It only faded to silence. A silence that still carries the echo of a man who felt everything. This is the story of Philip Seymour Hoffman, the genius who felt too deeply for a world that did not know how to save him.